So, hello and welcome to our week 4 of Motion is Lotion for your spine. Tonight we're going to continue on. We'll repeat a few things we've already done. So, if you could get a book or a yoga block again, that would be great because I think we will do the yoga block sequence again. And we'll also do a little bit of strengthening work through your glutes and your deep back muscles. And so, we'll probably use the block again for that. You may even need to have, you'll need something for your head if you're on your side. So make sure you've got a cushion or blankets. And we're also going to explore the idea of flossing. So neural flossing, where you're flossing the nerve covering. And the best way to think about nerve coverings is like the plastic coating on an electrical cord. So if we have any areas of restriction in the whole spine, then you can have areas where, say, for example, the nerves of your arm, they need to be able to glide and slide all the way out to your fingertips, and the same in the sciatic nerve and the nerves that go all the way to your toes. And sometimes we can do something and we might feel pain in our back or in our hamstring or sensations in our leg or in our arm that may actually be more the nerve covering not being able to glide and slide. So I've had some forearm stuff this last week or so, and I've been doing all this fun flossing because I worked out it was actually just the nerve covering. So we'll do a little bit of that, particularly for the lower legs, lower limbs today. So come and start. Welcome if you're just coming on. Come and start on your back. So come and find a comfortable position on your back. So you might like to have your knees bent, or you may have your legs long, whatever is most comfortable for your back. And then just start to notice your imprint. So remember, you always want your forehead slightly higher than your chin. So if your chin's poking up to the ceiling, you might just lengthen the back of the neck and lay it down. If it's still lower, grab a cushion or a small blanket and place it under the base of your skull. Only need one. And then notice your imprint. Let's start at the base of the skull, noticing the weight on the back of the head, and even turning your head gently from side to side and just noticing how your neck feels. And then coming down, being aware of the curve of the neck, the weight on the back of the shoulders, and all the way down your arms to your hands. Start to notice, is it the same or is it different? And then continue with that awareness going down through the mid-back. Become aware of the base of the ribs where the diaphragm attaches. And pause with your awareness here at the base of the ribs. And take a breath and breathe in through both nostrils and see if you can feel like there's a golden band around your lower ribs. Feeling that area expanding as the diaphragm contracts and moves down. And you need to have a really soft belly to allow the space for the diaphragm to be able to contract and move down. And then when you go to breathe out, notice how all that happens is the diaphragm relaxes back up into its double dome shape. Breathing in through your nose, let the breath be gentle and as low into your lungs as possible so that the upper chest stays very still. Notice the natural pause at the top of the breath. And then follow the exhale, feeling the diaphragm soften back up into its double dome. And enjoy another 3 very gentle diaphragmatic breaths. This idea of breathing low, slow, and maybe even a little less volume, so gentler. And noticing how it feels at the base of the ribs, where the mid-back changes or connects to the lower back, where the diaphragm attaches to the ribs and has little feet that go down onto the lumbar vertebrae. And the next time you breathe out, let go of this awareness and notice what happens to your breath when you let go. You might find you need to breathe deeper, particularly if you've been used to breathing through your mouth when we breathe in really larger volumes at rest. And just notice what happens. And then if you would like to dedicate this class or set an intention for yourself, feel free to bring your hands to your heart space. Atha Yoga New Shasanam. It is with great respect and infinite love for ourselves and all beings that we now come to this practice. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And as you lower your hands, just notice now too how the lower back feels, the weight on the buttocks. And if your legs are long, you'll notice the weight on your legs all the way down to your feet. And if your knees are bent, you're noticing where your knees are in space. And then you'll feel, if the knees are bent, the weight on the four car tires of the feet, the base of the big toe, base of the little toe, inner and outer aspect of the heel. And just notice, what's your imprint like this evening? How easily can you give your weight into the floor and surrender to gravity? And then bring your hands to your lower pelvis. So hands are on top of the front of the pelvis. And little fingers are in your hip creases. And we'll begin with the arch and release, and then an arch and flatten. So as you inhale, begin to roll your pelvis like a rolling pin towards your feet. Let go through your abdominals. And notice how your back has contracted as your pelvis is rolled forward. And then just take your time. Let your breath flow easily. And slowly melt your back. So you keep your front, your abdominals really relaxed as you just melt your back like ice cream on the hot concrete. And as you let your back spread, gravity will bring you back down to neutral. And do that again. As you breathe in, start to roll your pelvis towards your feet. Let your back arch, let go of the front. Noticing how far up the spine that movement goes. Pause at the top and notice how much you've let go of the abdominal muscles. So you want your belly really soft. And then slowly let your back melt like butter in a hot pan. Take your time. You're letting go of your back, gravity bringing you back down. And do that one more time, noticing, does the head move? How far up the spine did that movement go? Do the shoulders naturally press back, or how does it feel to open the chest and press the shoulders lightly into the floor? And then very slowly, melting your back like pancake batter in a hot pan, spreading lower back, mid back, shoulders. Have a little nod at the end to release the neck. And then bring your hands higher onto your ribs and come up quite high. So as high under your breasts as you're comfortable. And as you breathe in, let your back arch again. And press your shoulders back if that feels comfortable. So let go of the front of the chest to allow the shoulders to press back. And then slowly, slowly melt. So we'll take 2 breaths to go through this arch and flatten. coming to neutral on the first exhale. Then on the next exhale, so breathing in, preparing to move. On the next exhale, you'll sink your ribs down towards the floor, down towards your pelvis. Let your head tip back or look towards your forehead, and let your shoulders come off the floor. So don't feel like you've got to hold your shoulders ransom and hold them back. And notice how tight the front is now, that space between your pubic bone and your mid breastbone, that rope has really lengthened. And then super, super slow. Feel like you're lengthening that rope from your pubic bone all the way up to high on the breastbone. Coming back to neutral and watching you don't arch your back to get back to neutral, but rather let go of the front. And let's do that again. Breathing in, arching, pressing the shoulders back. Noticing how far up the spine that movement goes. Slow motion release. Slowly, slowly spread, let your back spread. So we just come to neutral on that first release. Then take a breath in here without moving. And as you exhale, sink your ribs. Remember, they're like bucket handles, down to the floor, down towards your feet. Let your shoulders follow your ribs. So they'll come off the floor, and then you'll either look towards your forehead or the ceiling, or tip your head back. Notice how the front is really tight and the back has let go. And then super, super slow, you're easing out the front. So come out of it. Take your hands off your ribs so you can really let the shoulders and chest relax. So remember that 3 phases of the pandiculation. So the last part of this, the flatten, we're pandiculating the front. You made them tighter than they already were by sinking. Then you slowly release them. And then the third phase is to let everything go as much as you can. So hands off the body. And let's do one more. And tonight I want you to start to notice which direction is easier for you. Is it easier to arch? Is it easier to flatten? And so as you inhale, start to let your pelvis roll towards your feet. You're pressing your shoulders back as the front lets go. Chin might soften to the chest. How easy is it for you to arch? And then slowly melt. Slowly, slowly, slowly melt. Take your time. So the whole time you're melting, there's no need to tense your abdominal muscles. Pause at neutral. Take a breath in here. And as you exhale, you flatten. So you tuck your tail, you sink your ribs down to the floor, down to your pelvis, head tips back, shoulders come away from the floor. How easy was it for you to flatten? And then take your time. Could be 3 breaths to come out. Just let the body breathe as you slowly lengthen the front. Hands off the body, completely switch off. So when you go back and keep practicing these videos, whenever you arch and flatten, whichever direction is easier for you, that's the direction your body is letting go of, yeah? So for me tonight, it was easier to flatten. It was harder to arch, which meant that the front of my body is holding on a little more than my back. So because we're on a Zoom call for this one, I'll get you to raise your hand, and Rachel will just go with whatever, because I know you're putting the boys to bed. So for Leah and Kath, what direction was easier for you? Was it easy to arch? So you just raise your hand or give me a thumbs up. So that's where you arch your back. Or was it easy to flatten your back? Flatten? Okay, so one of each. So if we go with, I guess there's only the 3 of us, for me, it was easier for me to flatten. So let's release the front first. Okay, so, and I find the more you can sense and feel, you'll go, okay, I just need to release my back. So I'll do a back lift. Or in this case, we're going to start with releasing the front, and we'll do the arch and curl with the leg slide. And that way you can start to condense how much you need to do, and you really tailor it to what your back needs or what your body needs and in that moment of time. So lifting up your feet when you're ready. And remember, this is where we cross the feet at the ankles and try and take them a little higher than your knees. And whichever foot is in front, that's the leg we're going to slide first tonight. So take your hands and interlace behind your head. So just notice which side you're starting on. As you inhale, let your back arch, and you might press your shoulders back, maybe your elbows if your shoulders are happy. Remember, you don't need to move your full range of movement to retrain your brain. So now melt your back, let your elbows come all the way in, and sink your ribs to lift your head. Come in as far as the back will allow. Now squeeze everything to the midline, so ankles, knees, elbows, and slowly lower your head without moving your legs. This way you're lengthening your hip flexors from your hips back up to your diaphragm. You're releasing the diaphragm and the chest muscles. Melt the elbows out. We touch down the leg we are going to slide. I'll do this one for the video. And hug the other one all the way. And remember, you can go behind the thigh or around the shin, whatever's happy for your knee. Toes are up initially. And we start to slide this leg towards straight, and you're watching that your back doesn't arch. So you pause at that moment where you feel like my back's going to move or my pelvis is going to move, and just hold there. Then frog leg that leg up or bring it back up. Bring it in front as you cross at the ankles. Hands are interlaced. Breath in, gently arching. So we contract the back first, so that's the arch, and press the shoulders back. Then you melt the back, slowly releasing, squeezing your elbows in. On the next exhale, you sink your ribs to lift your head. So now your back's let go so you can come up. And now we've contracted the front, and we squeeze everything into the midline, knees, ankles, elbows. Try and keep the legs very still as you slowly lower your head, like you're lowering a sleeping child or something precious. Melt your elbows. The front leg comes down. We're going to rock to the outer edge of that leg and just pause as you hug this other leg all the way in. And you can have it whatever shape you need, just thigh as close to belly as possible. And then slide your leg away. And remember, you're trying to find that spot where your pelvis goes to move, and you stop there. So you may be straight or you may be still bent. Then gently bring that leg up. Cross the ankles, that leg's still in front. Hands interlaced behind the head, thumb or index at the base of the skull. Take a breath in and let your back arch. Gently press your shoulders back. Slow motion. Melt the back. Squeeze the elbows in. Take the 2 breaths. So this way you can really practice on the exhale, sinking your ribs to lift your head. Super slow releasing, like you're lowering a grand piano out a window, and your abdominals are the rope, your chest muscles. And really feel like you're lifting your head off your shoulders to create that tension or traction rather behind the neck, melting the elbows out, hugging this leg in. So we're still sliding that first leg. Place it down close to your buttocks, roll to the inner blade. And it's important here that you do slide your leg along the floor, because it's allowing you to lengthen through from the diaphragm, through the abdominals, through the hip flexors. And then hold at the end for a moment. And place the other leg down and slide that leg to long, and just take your time to notice, how does the first leg feel? Sometimes it actually feels longer. And if you were to bring your feet together, your heels together, you might actually find that it is a little longer, because we've just released a whole lot of muscles and fascia on that side. So let's come to the other side. So cross your feet at your ankles. So now the other leg's in front. Hands are interlaced behind your head. As you breathe in, let your back arch. Gently press those shoulders back, maybe the elbows. Take your time to melt your back. So let's take a whole breath just to melt the back and get the elbows as close to the midline as possible. On the next exhale, sink your ribs to lift your head. Slowly coming up, squeezing knees, ankles, elbows towards the midline. Keep the legs as still as possible as you slowly lower Feel like you're lifting your head off your shoulders, creating traction for your neck, melting your elbows. So now we touch the second leg down, toes up, knee up, hug the other leg in, holding whatever is comfortable for you, and then slowly start to slide that leg towards straight. And so you might find there's a point where you just have to soften, even come back over it, and maybe you stop with your knee bent, or maybe it extends all the way. Then bringing that leg up, bring it in front, so you're crossing it in front, hands are interlaced. Inhale, arch, exhale, release. Squeeze the elbows all the way in as you melt your back. You're going to sink your ribs to lift your head on the next exhale. Coming up as high as the back allows. And now squeeze everything to the midline and feel like you're lifting your head off your shoulders as you slowly lower. Knuckles touch, elbows melt. You're going to touch this second leg down close to your pelvis. Sometimes I see people trying to hold it up to slide. You really want it on the ground so that way you can release the muscles. Holding that other leg in and slowly, slowly, slowly slide this leg towards long. Pause. And then bring that leg up. Cross at your ankles. Hands interlaced behind your head. Taking a breath in, let your back arch. As you breathe out, let your back melt. Squeezing the elbows. Next exhale, sink your ribs to lift your head. Super, super slow. Really hug the knees in, the ankles tight, elbows in. Slow motion release. So if you sit a lot for work, this is the perfect one to do at the end of the day. And you might just do an arch and flatten, and this arch and curl with the leg slide, and that's all you do. So this time we go inner blade. So release the foot down close to the pelvis, rock to the inner blade, check that you're holding this other leg in as close as back will allow, and start to slide. You might pause with the knee bent, or maybe it goes all the way straight. And then if your back's happy for you to put the other leg back down, just take a moment to sense. And if you feel like you want to bring your knees into your chest and hug or rock, please do. And when you do that, I love this work. So there's a great book written by Russell Vanderkolk, which is The Body Keeps the Score. And it talks about how the issues are in the tissues. So I just, in that, you can hear me a bit snotty. In that release, I just had these little tears going down, yeah, I don't know what it was, but I'm glad that it's gone. I've just released whatever that is. So as we now move into our back, just start to cross your feet at your ankles, take your knees wide, and rock your knees back and forth towards your armpits, and notice how it feels. And then you can either choose, because we're going to go over and do a back lift. So you could choose to just roll to your side and roll over, or you can start to roll. And as you roll, you might need to uncross your feet and see if you can make yourself as tight as you possibly can. And if you've got nice tiles or floorboards, enjoy. I'm on carpet, which I don't normally practice on. And I like the floorboards because I like how it actually mobilizes your joints. So enjoy rolling as tight as you possibly can be. And then come on up. And come over onto your hands and knees. I'm going to flow through some cat-cow before we come to the back lift. So sort of hands under shoulders, knees under pelvis. Of course, if you have any tension in your wrist, you can always do cat-cow in your elbows, or I've got to check, so we're going to use it later. Remember, you can always do these moves up high like this as well. So you don't have to be on your hands. If you're okay on your hands, or wherever you've chosen to be, start to lift your sit bones and look forward. And then press down through the whole room of your hands as you tuck your tail and round your spine. So notice what parts of your spine are moving easily as you flow now, breathing in as you lift your sit bones and begin to look forward, drawing the shoulder blades back and the hands back. And then as you exhale, tuck your tail and notice the parts of the spine that might need a little bit more encouragement to move. And do one more round. Just remember, there's no judgment. You're rather collecting data. What are the parts of my spine that like to move? Am I overusing them? What are the parts of my spine that might need to move a little more? And then come to a flat back and walk your hands forward and come down to the mat. So when you come down to the mat, if your pelvis is nestled into the floor, so as I rock my pelvis, I can feel it's really nestled, then you can stay here. If you feel like there's a little, or you're really tight in your hip flexors with the move we just did, or your pelvis feels like it's up a bit, or you don't like being on your belly, your lower back doesn't like it, just grab a blanket or a towel and put it underneath you. So if in doubt, if your lower back's a bit niggly, put that blanket underneath you. So I've got it from my belly button down. So it's supporting my hips as well as my lower back. And then rock your pelvis. Small movement, fast oscillation. You can do that with your legs long, or you can bend your knees. And your spine will have a preference. Mine prefers long. And I want you to notice how far up your spine does that movement go. And then pause. Turn your head to one way, so you let your spine decide which way you're going. And you look to that thumb. Now, if your neck is not happy looking at the thumb, look back to the floor and rest it on the back of the hand. And then check that your feet are lining up with your sit bones. They're not too wide. So bring them all the way together. And then imagine you're doing a heel toe and just bring them one heel toe out. And then press down with the arm that's in the T and the opposite foot. This is the diagonal we're going to access and release. And then peel off the floor, lifting your trunk. Your head follows. You don't need to come very high. You're trying to glide that shoulder blade like you're putting a phone in the opposite back pocket as you reach and lift that opposite leg. So think half as high, twice as slow. And then super, super slow. Let your back lengthen like a rope to lower your chest, to lower your head, to lower your leg. And let's do that again. So if you're comfortably looking at your thumb, you can put the other arm down beside you with your palm up on the floor. But remember, you might need to look at the floor and support your head. Press down with this hand and the opposite foot and release. Peel off the mat, gliding your shoulder blade like there's a rope pulling it to the opposite back pocket as you lift and reach that leg. Half as high, twice as slow. Front of your pelvis really pressing into the blanket or the floor. And then slowly lengthen your back. Lengthen your back. Keep releasing. Keep releasing. And then completely switch off. One more. Check you're on the tops of your feet and your feet are hip width apart. Press down with this arm and the opposite foot. Melt. Peel off the floor. Trunk, head, shoulder blade glides. Stick it in the opposite back pocket as you reach and lift that leg. And then super, super slow. Let your back lengthen. Let it lengthen. And switch off. And bring both hands to the mid underneath your forehead and rock your pelvis. Notice how it feels. And keep rocking. You can rock for as long as you like. And then we'll set up for the other side. So this time as you turn your head to look at the thumb, as you take the arm out into the T, your neck may not be happy. That might have been why you went the other side first. So remember, you can look at the floor and make a little stack. If you're happy looking at your thumb, the other hand can come down beside you. Check your feet are hip width apart. Press down with this hand you're looking at, or the arm that's out in the T, and the opposite leg, and melt. Then pick up the pelvis, peel off the floor, let your head follow. Trying to glide your shoulder blade across your back, like you're sticking into the back pocket, and you're reaching that opposite leg. And then super, super slow. Let your back lengthen, let it lengthen, and completely switch off. So end up squashing my face, and keep releasing the back of your shoulder so your shoulder rolls to the floor as well. Then we press down with this hand and the opposite foot and release. Peel off the mat, glide your shoulder blade, pause at the top and let go of what you don't need. Watch that other arm is relaxed, and then super, super slow. Super, super slow. Keep releasing, keep releasing, keep releasing. Switch off. Pressing down with this hand and the opposite foot and melt. Peel off the floor. Come up. Half as high, twice as slow. And then slowly release. You always want the release to be longer than the contraction. And completely switch off. And bring your head back to center and rock away. And then pause. And let's go back into child's pose before cat-cow. So come up onto your hands and knees. You might take that blanket out of the way. And sink back into child. And just notice your buttocks on your heels. You'd have your arms out in front, or remember, if your head doesn't reach the floor, you can make a little fist stack. Or if your head comes all the way down, you might even like to take your hands beside your feet. And just pause here for a few breaths, breathing in again through the nose, gentle breath, accessing the diaphragm. Low, slow, and a little less volume. And imagine that gold band, a painted gold band, or a sash if you like. It's not constricted at all, but it wraps around your lower ribs and reminds you where your diaphragm is. And just notice how it feels. And then slowly begin to roll up. Notice how your lower back feels. And as you roll up, try and roll up one vertebrae at a time, stacking one vertebrae on the one below it, all the way up until your head lifts. And then this is when you'll need a block or a book, or you could even use a cushion. So just have that relatively close by. And come onto your hands and knees again and flow through a couple of cat-cows. So if you can remember what it felt like before, just notice, what's it like now? After releasing the strap muscles of your back. So the superficial muscles of your back are rectus spine here, like two big straps that go from your pelvis high up into your ribs, and then you have thoracic muscles that go to behind your ear. So it's like a big strap from your pelvis to the base of your skull and behind your ears. And just notice how your back feels now after releasing those muscles. And then pause. And we're going to do a little bit of strengthening tonight, or accessing muscles that help to release your lower back or your whole back actually. So first of all, it's multifidus, and multifidus is the muscles that help you to roll up one vertebrae at a time. It's like a herringbone that goes from your pelvis to the base of your skull. And to do that, you actually imagine that it's just like you're rolling your ribs and someone's trying to put a piece of paper under your hand so your elbows stay straight. And then you just place your hand back down. And then you roll your ribs to the other side and you lift that hand up. It doesn't even need to be as high. So make it, half as high, twice as slow. And I'm moving from side to side. And as you put your hand down, it's almost like a cat, sort of preening at the floor. Watch that your elbows stay straight and you keep your hand underneath your shoulder rather than taking it out to the side. And just have a little play with that. So this is starting to access the deep intrinsic muscles of your upper mid back and lower neck. And then when we do the same with the legs, it'll access the lower back multifidus. So you keep your feet flat on the floor, but you lift your knee up like someone's trying to put a blanket underneath it. And then you place it back down. And it's often easier to do, say, 3 on one side. And just be mindful, you'll see it probably even more if I come a little closer or on the side, that I'm not lifting my foot. I'm just rolling my pelvis a little and lifting. But the weight still stays on my hand. I'm just lifting the knee a tiny little bit. And I'm not doing it, I'm not a male dog. I'm not taking the knee out to the side. And then swap sides and do the same on the other side. So you're grounding down through both hands. You keep the top of the foot on the floor and you're literally just lifting, imagining, if you like, that someone's got a rope on the back of your pelvis and you're lifting it up, or a sling that goes under your knee, and pop it down and see if you could alternate now from side to side. So we did the segmental bridge in the recording one last week where your feet were up on the chair. And that's a way of really strengthening these deep intrinsic muscles of your back. So is rolling up and down one vertebrae at a time. And so is this little mind trickery. So once your mind's had enough, your brain's had enough with that, let go. But then sink back into child and notice how your back feels. Circling your wrists, of course, if you need to release your wrists. Or you can even press the backs of your hands together behind your head. And notice if there was tension in your lower back before or in parts of your spine when you sunk into child, notice how it feels. And then come back up and do a cat-cow. That's different. Notice what you notice. And then pause and take your block or your book or a cushion or a towel and place it between your calf and your hamstring. So I'm going to squeeze it in. It helps if you flex your foot. So I've drawn my toes down towards my shin. So just tune into your hands for a moment. And remember, again, you could do this on your elbows. And if you feel there's pressure in your hands, you could try and have the whole rim of your hands pressing equally, base of thumb, index, little finger, inner and outer aspect of your wrist. But also lift up your armpits a little, almost like you're trying to go into a cat with your upper back. And then, particularly keeping pressure through both hands, you're just going to pulse that foot towards the ceiling. Again, small movement, slow. So you want your pelvis to be level. So you could take your opposite hand off the floor and make sure you're really grounding through the hand and the foot that are still there, and just check your pelvis is level. So if I go too high or I flip my pelvis around, that's not what we want. So small and controlled. And just do 3 more. Nice. And then swap sides. So again, set yourself up, watch you're not collapsing, almost a little bit of a cat through your upper back, lifting and just pulsing. And tell me, what's the second side like? You can check your pelvis if you wish. Chin is soft, neck is long. So did you do your easiest side first? Did your brain pick that without you thinking about it? It's quite common, that's what we do. And if that's what happened, I want you to do a few more on this side. Now, because I was doing it for the video, I did my harder side first, but I wouldn't normally pick that one. So for me, I'm not going to do as many because this is my stronger leg. So if that's your weaker leg, do 4 more. And then what you'll do is sink back into child when you complete. And notice what happens in your back when you activate your glutes. That's why everybody bangs on about your glutes. If you can strengthen your glute muscles, you will not use your strap back muscles as much to do activities of life. So notice how it feels. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be just what we just did then. 10 of those. And then come up into cat-cow again and notice. So draw back on your hands. Let your sit bones lift. And then tuck your tail and let the ripple of the breath move through the spine, one vertebrae at a time. How does it feel? And then come back to a flat back. And come up off your hands. And tonight we're going to look at this idea of doing a little bit of flossing the nerves. And we'll do it in a lunge. So you could move yourself to the couch or somewhere where you might be able to put your hand on a chair. And let's put the hand on the chair is opposite to the leg that is forward. So move yourself around at home wherever you need to be nice. And just put your foot forward where it feels comfortable. And then you'll come into a gentle lunge forward. And notice how I've ended where my knee is sort of stacked over my ankle. And then you'll come out of it. So this in itself is a floss. So you're coming into the lunge, moving the knee to a bent position, and then draw the hip back. And as I draw the sit bone back, I'm flossing all the nerves all the way down to my foot, keeping the big toe grounded. And so only ever come into these lunges or flosses at about a 3 out of 10, no more. Yeah, you might need something under your knee. So that whatever the sensation is, wherever you feel it, only let it be about a 3 out of 10. And the next time you move your foot towards, or your knee rather towards straight, pause there. And then your foot is down, so let your head drop down and notice, do you feel any sensations? So your hips are square, head is down, foot down, head down. So remember, this knee could be very bent, doesn't have to be straight. And then lift your toes and look up. Head up, foot down, head down. So I'm not changing the position of my knee. Head up, foot up. So you might have this leg completely straight, or you might have the knee slightly bent, head up, toes up, head down, toes down. So for me, I can have my leg straight and only get a sensation that's sort of like a stretch, but it's also something more in my leg, in this leg, about a 3 out of 10. Head up, toes up, head down, toes down. Nice. And then pause, because you only want to do about sort of 5 or 6 of those, and then let your knee bend. And then I'll turn so I'm facing you. You don't need to change where you are. And come into your lunge to where it's comfortable, and then bring your middle fingers to touch. So hug your muscles to your bones and your bones to the midline. And we're going to rotate away from this leg. So as I rotate my ribs like a barrel away, I'm really drawing the shin in so that my knee doesn't roll in. And then come back to center. Middle fingers touch. So hug the muscles in, draw the heel in, draw the shin in, and turn away. And if you need to hold on, then have your hands on the chair and come back and hands on your thigh. But I really want you to think about rolling your ribs like a barrel. So that's why I put the middle fingers together if you've got the balance to do that. Draw the heel in, draw the shin in as you turn away. Nice. And then just come back, hand back on the chair or the couch, and do that movement again where you draw this knee towards straight. And notice if it changes what you feel by adding the rotation. So remember your spinal cord finishes at the base of your ribs. So we've just mobilized that area and it might change. So for me, it changes it a lot. Maybe, maybe not. And then let's swap sides. So bring that leg. If you need to get off your knees, feel free. Actually, let's do it. A standing cat-cow is such a valuable thing to go through tonight. So a standing cat-cow could be hands on whatever you're supporting on, or hands on your thighs, or even on your shins. Knees bent really generously. Look forward, lift your sit bones, draw your shoulder blades back. Feel like you're drawing your feet and hands apart, but the floor is resisting. And then keep your knees just where they are and tuck your tail like a dog that's in trouble and let your back around, let your head go. So there's a standing cat-cow to really get into the very lower lumbar. Then lift the sit bones, feel like you're drawing your hands and your feet apart without moving them. And then tuck your tail around. One more time. Feel like you're drawing your hands and feet apart without moving them. Feel those shoulder blades move back as you look forward. And then tuck your tail and round. Nice. And then you could roll up, or you might want to just go back down. Feel free to roll up if you want to roll up and then come back down. Nice. Just notice how your back feels if you stood up. Walk around a little if you want. Give your knees a break from being on them. And then make your way back when you're ready. And we'll set up for the lunge flow on the other side. So the other foot is forward now. Remember, you can have something beside you on the back knee side. It's probably easier to support you, or whichever side it lands. And as you draw your knee towards straight, you're thinking about taking your pelvis back. And I'm just exploring, foot, toes stay on the floor, big toe grounded. Just noticing when you lunge in and out, how did this configuration feel? How does it feel in this leg that you're straightening? How does it feel in the back leg, front of the hip? And remember, always when you lunge forward, that you tuck your tail like a dog that's in trouble, so that as you come forward into your lunge, you'll feel that opening in the back front of the hip. Nice. So now let's move towards a floss. So come towards that 3 out of 10 sensation, whether it's a stretch or anything else. So the knee might be straight or it might be slightly bent. And then you lift the toes and you look up as you lift the toes. You release the toes and release your head, keeping your knee in the same angle. Lift your toes, lift your head. Sink your toes. Sink your head. So stay up where you are, but if you felt like, I'm not feeling anything, then I would add more flexion into it. So I could bring my hands down. And so you release your head and release your hands, head and toes. Look up, toes up. Head down, toes down. And again, we only need to do about 5 or 6. Then we let the knee bend and come back up if you went to the floor. Now your middle fingers are going to touch. So you're in your lunge, but you're in a comfortable position here. You're going to hug your muscles to the bones and really draw that shin in towards the midline of the back leg. And then we rotate away from that leg and it doesn't move. So only go as far as you can without letting this knee roll in. Squeeze the shin in and then just come back to center and roll your ribs like a barrel. Remember, if you need to hold on, keep your fingers on the chair and your fingers or your hands on your leg and chair. But as you turn, try not to pull with your arms, but rather let your ribs do the work. So I'm having to really quite work hard to keep this shin in, to draw the shin in so that as I turn, that knee doesn't roll. Yeah, looks good. Come back. Good evening, Lily the pussycat. And then come back to center and then start to draw this leg back towards straight by dragging the hip back. And notice, what do you feel in your leg now after we've added that rotation? And then release your knees. Let's come into a cat-cow after a little bit of flossing. So that was just flossing for your lower legs and your ribs. There's a whole lot of flossing for your arms. Very happy to send you a little video if anyone's interested in that. And then draw back on your hands and really enjoy this last cat-cow. So tucking your tail and rounding. Breathing in as you draw back on your hands. Let the ripple of your breath move through your whole spine. And then slowly tuck the tail and round. A little bit of movement in a lot of places. And then you could choose to go back onto your back if you've had enough of child and bring your knees into your chest because that's where we're heading next. Or come back into child one more time. Maybe hands beside your feet again or make a fist stroke. And as you pause there, notice, how does your back feel? How does your whole spine feel? Notice the weight of the buttocks on the heels or towards the heels. Notice the belly on the thighs. Notice the diaphragm. And then when you're ready, you're going to roll up one vertebrae at a time. Come up into sitting or a high kneel. And shift your buttocks to one side. Bring your feet out in front. And then walk your bum bones. Walk to the top of your mat. And remember, when we walk with our bum bones like this is those deep intrinsic muscles again. This is multifidus. So really good if you get on the floor, really good to walk with your bum bones. And then we'll roll. Now, of course, if that's not right for you to roll back, you could just lie down and do knees to chest. But if you can, oh, that feels so different. So enjoy rolling again and notice how bioplastic we are, how much we can change in a very short period of time. Getting movement into joints that may not have been moving before. So notice how that feels. And then come down onto your mat and find your book. So either your Harry Potter book, The Lord of the Rings, they're all pretty nice, some of them are nice and fat, or your yoga block. I've also seen people use a piece of wood, whatever you need, whatever you've got. And we've done a fair bit of segmental movement, so we won't do the bridge with the feet on the chair. But remember, you can always add that in if you're just doing the yoga block on its own. So take a breath in and let your back arch. And then just take your time to melt your back. Like ice cream on the hot concrete, no tension in your abdominals at all. Now from here on your next exhale, tuck your tail, which your abdominals would work to do that. And then pick up your pelvis and peel up into a bridge. And come up high enough that you can put the block under. So remember, top of the block, top of the pelvis. So if I put my hands on my hips like I'm cranky, slide my thumbs around the back, that's where the block is going to be. And if it doesn't feel comfortable, take it lower towards your feet. And then you'll slide one leg at a time towards straight and take your arms up above your head. And just notice, how does it feel? It's really good if you are going to do this, a sequence of somatic movements, so somatic releases, to do this later. So I did this before class just because I was curious. And I had a real hinge in my lower lumbar. as in there was a real focus point of where the pressure was. Now we've released all the muscles. It feels very, very different. And just allow yourself to have 4 more breaths. If it's not comfortable, come off it sooner, because it's the coming on and off it that changes the pressure. So when you're ready, you'll bring one foot to the floor, then the next. You want to tuck your tail before you lift up off it, so flatten the back. Also allows you then to be able to get that segmental movement as you lift up. Take the block out, slowly roll down. Option to take your hands back up to work more through your upper back. Once your pelvis touches down, cross your feet at your ankles, knees wide, and rock them in, and keep rocking for as long as you need. So you could keep going. If there's tension in your back, please keep going. Sarah Keys suggests that you can even do this for up to 2 minutes. And it's the coming on and off the block together with this knees to chest rocking that's been shown to help to plump up the discs. So do as much as you need. And then you could go to reverse abdominals. So squeezing the knees and the ankles together, neck and shoulders really relaxed. You're using your tummy muscles to bring your legs in. You want to watch your legs don't go too far back and arch your back. So if that's happening for you, just let your hands come behind like pinball stoppers. So they're not helping me bring them in, but they're just making sure my legs don't go too far back. Nice. And then let's do some legs passing. So uncross your feet. Knees are in as close to your chest as comfortable. And then you go to touch one toe towards the floor, keeping the knee this bent. You don't even need to touch. And you draw the opposite leg in towards the chest. So if you find you're a long way away, you could even put your block down and touch your toe to your block as you draw your other knee in or your book. So the whole time your lower tummy is tense. So tone in the lower belly, watch that you're breathing. Legs passing. Which is what happens when we walk. We need to be able to stabilize one side of the pelvis and let the other side move in the opposite direction. Nice. And then take the block away if it's there. Go back to rocking, but rocking so you can come up. So as you roll up, the first option would be feet flat and come forward into a forward bend. The deeper version is cross your ankles and come into a forward bend. We're rolling up and rolling through the spine. So if this bit's not right for you, just stay on the floor and keep doing knees to chest, rocking, legs passing. If you're rolling, do it one more time. Plant your feet and come forward, releasing your head. So this is another flossing one. So if you came here and had sensations right down your spine or weird, what if you're like, not sure what that is, you could always have a little floss, which would look like toes up, head up, toes down, head down, toes up, head up, toes down, head down. Couple more. And then we'll roll back to the floor. Do a little bit more knees to chest rocking. And let's do the yoga block again. So plant your feet. Little breath into arch. Melt. Pick up your pelvis. Peel up just high enough to put the block under. After a while, you might feel like you could go in the middle edge of the block. And the middle edge of the block is in the middle of my pelvis. So if you're on the bottom edge of the block or the flat edge, remember top of the pelvis, so hands on your hips like you're cranky, slide your thumbs around the back. That's where the top of your pelvis, so you want the block below that. Then release one leg at a time. Arms above your head. 6 breaths. See if you can let the hips relax. If it's uncomfortable, like it feels strange yet comfortable. If it's uncomfortable, bend your knees and adjust it and just take it a little bit lower. Can make all the difference. And then you'll bend up one knee at a time. Tuck your tail, then lift up into the bridge. Take the block out, roll down. You can stay where you are or take your arms back up and slowly roll down. Knees to chest rocking. Feet crossed, knees wide. Rock for as long as you need. And then then we'll do reverse abdominals. I want to roll, but let's do reverse abdominals. And then some legs passing. So if your back's feeling good, you might just do 6 of each. If you need to do more, do more. And then you don't have to get off the floor and roll. Repeat that sequence or come on up and either come forward with your legs crossed or remember feet planted. Roll back down and do it one more time. And if you're crossing your feet, you cross them the other way. And then slowly roll back down. And we'll finish with some twists before Shavasana, before we let all that integrate. And so let's do the cross-legged steeple twist because it's such an unusual twist. Like it's one that's pretty unique to somatics. So I'd like you to really get it. And so let's come together with this one. No, actually, you've done it a couple of times. Let's see what your brain wants to do. So cross one leg over the other and just see which way your brain wants to go. And then take your hands up into steeple. Remember, if your shoulders are up by your ears, do it more. So squeeze them up a bit more and then let them come down. And so now my brain wanted to put my left leg on top. So the left leg is the weight. So check which leg you've got on top. So that means your pelvis goes towards the weight, towards the top leg, and your ribs go the other way, keeping your elbows straight. Come back to center. Separate your hands, bring them to the floor, and let your pelvis roll the other way. Come back to center. Tip your pelvis towards the top leg, the weight, and let the ribs roll the other way, keeping the elbow straight. Come back to center. Separate your hands. Backs of hands are on the floor, head turns away from the knees. And let's do this one more time in this direction. Tip your pelvis away. Come back to center. Separate your hands. Backs of hands are on the floor. Pelvis rolls. Head turns away. Come back to center and uncross your legs. Just remember which leg you had on top. But before we go the other side, we should check the steering wheel. If that was uncomfortable for you, apologies, you probably may have needed to do a steering wheel beforehand. So hands on your pelvis like you miss PE or you're cranky with somebody, right in. I'll just get up so you can see that. You're right in on top of your pelvis and you're pushing down towards your feet. And what you're noticing is one side of your pelvis hitched up higher than the other. Now, if your pelvis was a steering wheel, it's not going to arch and flatten. It's only going to turn clockwise or counterclockwise. So if you just notice, which way does your pelvis want to turn? Which way is easier? So for me tonight, it's pretty even actually. Sometimes it'll be easier to turn the pelvis clockwise, which means the right side hitches up. Sometimes it'll be easier to go left. So just notice which way is easier for you and go your easier way, and then slowly bring your pelvis back to where your hands tell you is level. Do that one more time to the easier side. You'll notice how my head is moving, so try and just let your head follow your spine and your pelvis. Hands tell you it's level. And then go the other way and go smaller movement. Notice how this side has to lengthen to allow you to turn the other way. And now very slowly come back to where your hands tell you is level. And do that again. Turn your steering wheel and slowly come back to where your hands tell you is level. Once your pelvis is level, pick up the other leg. So remember which one you had before, cross the other one over. Hands come up into steeple. Remember, if they're up near your ears, do it more and then release. Tip your pelvis towards the top leg. Remember, it doesn't need to be a big distance. And roll your ribs the other way, keeping the elbows straight. Come back to center. Separate your hands. Let your pelvis roll away, and you turn to look away from your knees. Again, you don't need to go too far if it's too strong, particularly Rach, if you find that too strong. Remember, you could have your feet together rather than the leg crossed. So tip the pelvis away, come back to center, separate the hands, backs of hands on the floor as you turn away from the legs. So we did 3 on the other side. So if it feels pretty similar, do the same reps. If it feels easier, maybe do less. If it feels harder, do more. And then come back to center. Do you need to bring your knees into your chest? Honor that. Are you cooked? And are you ready to just let your legs either go up onto your couch and have a right angle, right angle, right angle, or have your legs long and have something underneath your knees? So remember, if you've got your couch, just a reminder that this, having your legs up and a right angle at your hips and a right angle at your knees, so my butt's really close to the chair, that actually helps your back muscles release all the way up. If your forehead is lower than your chin, remember you would then put your blanket or even your mat just underneath the base of your skull, and find a place where you're really comfortable and notice your imprint. Come back to the back of the head and notice the weight on the back of the head, and just turn your head from side to side. So remember how I've talked a lot about how your head and your pelvis are either end of your spine. So we haven't really done a lot of specific neck releases tonight, but hopefully your neck feels like mine and feels a little easier than when we started, because we've released tension in the trunk and it's also connected. And then notice the weight on the back of the shoulders, the shoulder blades, the space between the shoulder blades, and all the way down your arms. Notice the weight on the hands. How now? Where is the weight now? You might soften or close your eyes. Notice the weight through the back of the ribs. And it might be different now that the legs are up. Sense where your diaphragm is. That sash or golden band, painted band around the base of the ribs. And can you let your belly be really soft here? So that as you breathe in through your nose, you can feel your diaphragm expanding. Maybe you'll sense it at the back. the sides or the front. And then feel the weight in the lower back. Feel that your back is just spreading into the floor. And the weight on the buttocks. And if your legs are up on the couch, you might feel the weight on the back of your legs all the way to your heels. And as you allow the body to soften, feel the back of the body sink into the floor a little more. And follow the breath. That gentle, slow, low, and maybe a little gentler, a little less. And every time you breathe out, feel now that the organs soften. Feel the brain sink away from your forehead to the back of the head, softening your temples and your forehead even more. Feel your eyes sink into their sockets, softening all around the eyes. Feel the organs of the throat soften to the back of the neck, the lungs, heart, thymus. Feel all the abdominal organs soften. They are like different weighted water balloons. And feel them just soften and sink into the back of the body a little more. Feel the organs of the pelvis soften. And allow yourself to rest for a few moments. And then very gently start to bring your awareness back to your body lying on the floor in your room. Notice your imprint. Notice your breath. Notice how you feel. Begin to lengthen the breath a little and draw that breath from the earth below you. Bring it to your navel. Let it spread into every single cell in your body. And then bring it back from every cell to your navel and send it like an anchor deep into the earth. Keep breathing in this manner and begin to move now. You might bring your knees back into your chest or stretch your arms over your head. Notice what you need. And then make your way over onto your side and come up into sitting. And sit however is comfortable for you so that you can have your pelvis grounded. You want your spine lengthened, and particularly that golden band area where the diaphragm attaches. You don't want that to be rounded. So you can imagine that coat hanger analogy. There's a hook in your head and a timber rack across your shoulders. Hook yourself on a horizontal beam that's just above your head, and then be like a silk shirt, softening. And let's bring the left hand and the right hand to the heart space. And just take a moment to just notice how you feel. And as you breathe in, imagine you're breathing through your spines. Bring your breath to your heart space. And in that pause, say to yourself, I am grateful for. And let whatever bubbles up, let it bubble. And as you exhale, send that deeper and deeper into your being. For it is with great respect and infinite love that we now conclude this practice. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. I honor that place in you where love, light, and truth dwell. For when you rest in that place in you, and I dwell in that place in me, we are connected. Namaste. So thank you. I'm going to turn the recording off and then we can have a chat.